I am Jake Montgomery, and I can't forget that day, Thursday afternoon, around 4:10 p.m. My phone suddenly buzzed. Although I had already predicted the content of the message, I still looked at the screen. Just as I thought, it was a notification. From my private investigator, Kyle Weston. She's been served. As a man who had been married for 20 years, I knew my wife, Olivia Montgomery, so well that I could predict her every move in this situation. Olivia was a senior attorney at a prestigious law firm in Chicago where she worked tirelessly to climb the career ladder. She was always busy with meetings and litigation, but I still loved her. I once thought she was the perfect wife, the ideal partner. But the truth I discovered was the complete opposite. Olivia had been having a long-term affair with Matthew Sorrento, a partner at her law firm. After I received an anonymous letter with a photo of Olivia and Matthew embracing at a luxury motel, I had no doubt anymore. 3 years ago, I hired Kyle to follow her, and everything I found shocked me. I even had videos, texts, and phone calls as undeniable evidence. But I didn't act hastily. I kept everything to myself, pretending nothing was wrong. But deep down, I had already started making plans. My plan wasn't to seek revenge immediately. I needed time. I needed to be slow and steady. I knew that if I confronted her suddenly, it would just turn into a stressful legal battle with nothing more. I needed to do this perfectly. I reached out to a renowned attorney, Rachel Fields, someone I knew well and trusted. Rachel was the only one I trusted to keep things confidential. She planned everything step by step, helping me prepare for a divorce that no one could anticipate. A few weeks later, my divorce papers were ready. I decided not to cite infidelity as the reason. This would make Olivia think that I was divorcing her for other reasons, such as irreconcilable differences. I knew she wouldn't accept it easily, but I didn't want her to know that I already knew everything. I wanted to create a real shock, a shock she couldn't prepare for. That day, I called Olivia into the office at her law firm. I informed her that I was filing for divorce, and I also told her that I had hired a private investigator to follow her. The whole office witnessed that moment. I wanted her to feel the humiliation of being exposed at work, where she had always prided herself. Olivia didn't rush home. She went back to the office, locked herself in her office, and started reading the divorce papers I had sent. It would take her time to understand everything, but when she realized that I had not requested the division of my company's assets, I knew she would be confused. I started preparing for the confrontation. Olivia would return home that evening. I had set up a dinner table in the living room, prepared a glass of wine for her, and placed a seat across from me. I didn't want to see her panic, but I wanted her to feel the clear difference in how I treated her. We would talk like adults, but I would not relent. When Olivia walked into the house, I was already sitting at the table. The sound of her footsteps echoed on the tiled floor of the quiet house. She walked into the living room, glanced at me, and then sat down in the chair across from me, as if everything that had happened was just a game. Olivia poured wine into the glass, raised it, and took a long sip. She looked at me, her fake smile still intact. "Shall we talk, Jake?" Olivia spoke, her voice calm. I smiled lightly and replied, "Don't worry, I'm not here to start a fight, but I will never accept a cheating wife." Olivia was silent, but I could tell she was trying to control her emotions. She said casually, "Okay, I admit I made a mistake in our relationship, but my affair with Matthew was just a way to relieve stress. I never loved him. I don't care whether you loved him or not. What I care about is the betrayal," I said, my voice firm. "What I can't tolerate is that you've lied to me for 3 years. She looked at me, her breath quickening. "Why did you have to do this to me, Jake? Why bring everything into the open? I took a deep breath, looked at her, and slowly said, "Because I have enough evidence. You don't stand a chance against me." Olivia wanted to protest, but at that moment I knew she realized that everything she thought she controlled had come crashing down. Olivia sat silently for a moment, her eyes drifting over the family photos on the table where we had once taken pictures together, preserving happy memories. A moment of silence stretched out, making the air even more suffocating. She lifted her glass of wine again, but this time her hand trembled slightly. She began to stutter. "Jake, I really didn't think you would do this. You want a divorce over something so small. You don't understand. You could forgive me." I looked at her, without a hint of sympathy. I just smirked derisively, not allowing her to pull me into her weak excuses. "Olivia, do you really think I would let you off the hook after everything you've done? This is not a small thing. You didn't just lie to me, you destroyed our family. Do you know what it feels like to be betrayed?" She tried to control her emotions, but I could see the anger and humiliation hidden beneath her calm demeanor. She wasn't ready to admit her wrongdoing. "Jake, how long have we been together? 20 years?" "I've never done anything to make you feel deprived," Olivia tried to justify, but I had heard enough. "We're not the same anymore, Olivia. You can deny it as much as you want, but I know everything now. You can't lie to me anymore. You've slept with someone else, and you're still trying to blame everything but yourself. Don't try to tell me you love me while betraying me behind my back." Olivia took a deep breath, stood up, her fist clenched, her eyes bloodshot. "You'll regret this, Jake. I may not get anything from this divorce, but you will never have peace. I'll do everything to destroy you." I looked at her, my heart unwavering. She could say whatever she wanted, but I had prepared for this. I stood up, my gaze determined. "You no longer have the right to threaten me. This isn't just about family, Olivia. This is about respect and pride. Do you think you can crush me with empty words?" Olivia turned away, trying to keep her composure, but I could see the anger rising in her. "You can pretend you don't know anything, but I figured it out, Jake. Who do you think you are? Do you think you can change everything with one shock? Do you have any idea what I've had to endure?" I paused, looked at her and slowly said, "What you've had to endure. Don't try to play the victim, Olivia. You chose this path. You're the one who caused everything." We both stood still for a moment, staring at each other, the atmosphere heavy with tension. I knew Olivia was thinking of a way to retaliate, looking for a way out while I was preparing the next step in my plan. "You'll regret it, Jake," she said again, but this time her voice was no longer as strong as before. She began to tremble, perhaps realizing she had made a huge mistake. "Oh, really?" I asked, my eyes cold. "How will you regret it when I've already prepared everything? Everything you're looking for, everything you think you have a right to, is no longer there. I sold the company and moved all the assets overseas. Don't think I'll let you take anything from me." Olivia's eyes widened. Her hand started to shake. She took a step back, and I could see the confusion in her eyes. "What? You did what?" she gasped, a wave of fear rising. "I sold the company." "Olivia," I continued, "my company is no longer mine, and with your power in divorce, you won't be able to find a single penny from it." Olivia froze, unable to believe what she had just heard. I knew this truth would strike her hard. "You deceived me. Why would you do this?" she stammered, her words tightening in her throat. "I didn't deceive you," I said, my voice emotionless. "You just don't understand that I've planned every step. You won't win. Her Matthew and your company, everything you think you control is gone." Olivia sank into the chair, her face turning pale. She began to tremble, unable to say another word. I stood there in silence, allowing her to feel the consequences of her actions. This confrontation wasn't just about revealing financial secrets. From here, Olivia would begin facing the consequences of her actions. She would try to use every connection, even those in my own family, to threaten me, but her schemes wouldn't touch me. I was prepared for every step ahead, making sure Olivia could not retaliate. Olivia sat motionless, staring at me, her hands clenched as though trying to hold on to something. I didn't know what she was thinking, but I could see the collapse in her eyes. Yes, I had pushed everything to the limit, but I didn't regret it. She needed to understand that everything she had done had consequences, and now it was time for me to reclaim it all. Do you really think you can do all this without paying the price? Olivia finally spoke, but this time her voice was no longer arrogant. Instead, there was a trace of weakness, as if she was struggling with something she couldn't stop. I looked at her, feeling a sense of satisfaction inside, but not showing it outwardly. Olivia, do you think I haven't thought of every possibility? You can threaten me as many times as you want, but I've prepared for every situation. You no longer have the power to make me fear you. She fell silent for a moment, then stood up, her face flushed, her eyes full of anger. You don't understand, Jake. Do you think that's all I am? You may defeat me over the money, but you can't destroy what I've built. The company, my reputation, everything will crumble if you go through with this plan. I couldn't help but laugh. You can threaten me one more time, but you can't save anything. I don't need to fight with you over the company or the reputation anymore. I've done what everyone thought was impossible. I've moved the money overseas. I've sold all the important things you never knew about. You have no rights anymore. Olivia took a step back, as if I had slapped her. She turned her face away, trying to control her emotions, but I knew she couldn't handle it. She had let me take full control. Jake, you can't keep doing this. I won't let you win, she said, but this time her voice sounded more panicked than determined. Are you threatening me? I said, my gaze cold. Do you know I already prepared everything? The divorce papers have been filed. The money, the assets, everything has been moved. Nothing will belong to you anymore. Olivia didn't answer. She just stood there silent, as if there was nothing left to say. After that intense confrontation, I felt like I had pushed Olivia to her final wall, but I wasn't the kind of person who would stop easily. I had prepared for these situations a long time ago, and I knew Olivia would try to retaliate. But at this moment, I didn't need to worry anymore. Everything was under my control. The following days passed slowly, but I could feel the tension in the air. Olivia began searching for any loophole in my plan. She started approaching my close friends, people I had trusted for years, trying to pressure them against me. She hoped to find a flaw in my plan, but I had prepared everything meticulously, with no loopholes. One weekend evening, as I was sitting in my office, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Kyle, my private investigator. He had sent me a video. Olivia and Matthew were meeting at a high-end hotel, discussing how they would fight against me in the divorce. They were talking about the evidence Olivia thought she could use to turn things against me. I watched the video calmly, without any emotion. I had known they would do this, but now I had the proof to confront them. I smirked derisively. Thank you, Olivia. Do you really think you can win? I thought to myself, then sent the video to Rachel. I decided to confront Olivia directly again, but this time I wouldn't be as patient as before. She had crossed the line, and I would make her pay for it. Olivia walked into the house holding a thick stack of documents. She didn't look at me, but I could feel the tension in every step she took. "Jake, I have my way of dealing with this," she said, but her voice no longer had the confidence it once did. Instead, there was a hint of worry. "I knew you wouldn't give up that easily," I replied, my tone cold. "But this time, Olivia, you're wrong." She looked up, her eyes filled with anger and desperation. "You think you can defeat me? You can't."
"Make me submit." I stood up, slowly walked toward her, and then took the video that Kyle had sent me yesterday and threw it onto the table in front of her. "What can you do when I have all the evidence? You no longer have the power to threaten."
"Or retaliate," I said, then walked out of the room. "What you're doing will only make you pay even more." The next morning, I received a call from Rachel. Her voice was tense, and I could sense the worry in her words when she said, "Jake, I just got information from a reliable source. Olivia is working with a new team of lawyers. They've prepared an attack strategy and might find a loophole in our plan. She's not going to give up as easily as we thought." I hung up the phone and sat down in my office, taking a deep breath. Rachel was right. Olivia wouldn't stop easily. She would try everything to turn the tables, but I had prepared for this. Every move I made had been calculated carefully. At that moment, a notification popped up on my computer screen. It was a message from Kyle, my private investigator. The next video. This time, it was a clip of Olivia and Matthew in a tense conversation at a cafe discussing the next steps in their plan to deceive me. "Jake will never figure out what we're doing," Olivia said, her voice full of confidence. "We're going to beat him." Matthew, his face full of concern, responded, "But if we're not careful, everything will fall apart. We can't let this go too far. He's too smart." This time I laughed. That was exactly what I needed. Convincing evidence, undeniable. Proof of Olivia's betrayal and her next moves. Not only her, but Matthew too, the man I knew would face the consequences of his actions. I called Olivia into the living room after receiving the video from Kyle. When she walked in, her face looked tired and tense, but in her eyes there was still a glimmer of unshakable pride. Olivia had never been one to be easily defeated. "Jake."
"I don't want to continue this game. I'm exhausted," Olivia spoke, but I knew that was just a cover for the anxiety rising within her.
She was trying to hide the panic that was building inside her. "Olivia, do you think I'll stop just because of some empty words from you?" I replied, my tone cold and void of emotion. "You've been doing this for far too long, and now it's time for you to pay." I reached out and threw the stack of documents Kyle had just sent me onto the table in front of her. She took it, and I saw the change in her eyes. She opened it, glancing through the photos and videos I had gathered. "You can see it now," I continued. "Everything you've done has been recorded. Both Matthew, your conversation, everything is in my hands." Olivia put the stack of documents down on the table, her hands beginning to tremble. "Jake, you can't do this to me," she choked. "You can't destroy everything we built, all the effort I've put in." "You destroyed everything a long time ago, Olivia," I replied, without a hint of compassion. "Do you think you can betray me and not face the consequences? That's not going to happen. Everything you wanted to keep is no longer there." Olivia fell, silent, as if there was nothing more to say. She looked at me for a long while, then turned her face away, her eyes welling with tears. She stood up, walked away. But this time I couldn't let her walk away so easily. "Olivia, don't think you can run away," I said, my voice full of authority. "I've informed family and friends about the reason for the divorce. I've prepared for everything. You won't be able to go back to being the good person in their eyes anymore. She turned back to look at me, her face swollen from crying, but her eyes full of resolve. You can't do this to me, Jake. I love you. I've always loved you. Love?
I laughed derisively. You love me, Olivia. Do you even know what love is? After lying to me for 3 years, you're no longer the person I once loved.
You've destroyed everything. Olivia didn't reply. She turned to walk out, but this time I didn't stop her. I knew she would return. She couldn't just give up so easily, but I wouldn't let her go either. After a week of silence, Olivia finally called me. I knew this would be an important conversation. Jake, I've thought a lot about everything.
I know I was wrong, but I want a chance to make it right. I don't want it to end like this, she said on the phone, her voice gentle and pleading. I stayed silent for a moment. It had gone too far. There was no more chance for Olivia. Olivia, I don't love you anymore, I replied, my voice emotionless. And I can't forgive you. You've made too many mistakes, and now you must face the consequences. I hung up the phone. The next day, when I returned from work, I found Olivia sitting
on the sofa in the living room, her face tired and full of despair. She didn't look at me when I walked in, only stared at her hands as if trying to find a way to change things. Jake, Olivia spoke up, but her voice was weak, almost not strong enough to make me stop. I don't know what to do anymore. I was truly
wrong, but I can't let everything end like this. I stood silently at the door, looking at her, saying nothing. My mind was caught in conflicting emotions.
I wanted to forgive her, but my rational mind told me that I couldn't. I couldn't continue living with someone who had betrayed me for 3 years. I love you, Jake. I've always loved you with all my heart. And I've done the most foolish thing.
In my life, I regret it. I truly regret it, Olivia continued, her eyes red, tears running down her cheeks.
But I couldn't feel any sympathy. I was too tired of all the broken promises. So many times I had forgiven her and convinced myself that she would change. But no more. Olivia, you can say how much you love me, but it won't change anything, I replied, my voice firm, not allowing emotion to seep into my words. You betrayed me. Nothing can change that. You've destroyed not only our relationship, but our family. Olivia fell silent, her head bowed, then suddenly stood up, walking toward me, her hands trembling, reaching out as if to hold me back. Jake,
I know I was wrong, but can we start over? I'll do everything to make things right. I'll start fresh, she said, her eyes never leaving mine, as if hoping I would find some compassion.
But I just stood there, motionless, eyes not leaving hers. No, Olivia, don't you understand? There's no more chance. I've suffered enough. I can't continue living under the shadow of this betrayal. One morning, as I was sitting in my office, an unexpected call came in. It was from James Westbrook, Olivia's lawyer. His voice was cold and serious. Jake, I want to inform you that Olivia has filed a lawsuit regarding the loss of assets and rights in your company. She believes there are legal issues regarding the division of assets. She has prepared an attack strategy to regain what she believes is fair. I felt a shock run through me. I knew Olivia wouldn't let this go, but I had prepared for this. There was no way she could beat me. I had complete control of the situation, but the fact that she was taking it to court still made me feel a little bitter. Olivia was not just a former wife. She was a dangerous opponent, someone who would always try to fight back, no matter how much I tried to push her out of my life. Rachel, get everything ready. I won't let Olivia take a single dime from me. Don't let her think I'll be lenient, I said, over the phone to Rachel, who had been with me since the beginning of the divorce. That day, I walked into the courtroom with my team of lawyers. Olivia was there too, but she looked different. Her hair was down, her business suit neat, but her eyes no longer had the same confidence they once did. I looked at her for a moment, then turned my gaze forward. I felt everything was set perfectly. Olivia no longer had a chance to win. She had done everything she could to turn the tables, but I had prepared too well. The evidence of her betrayal was undeniable, and I had solid proof that she had acted wrong from the start. Olivia stood up when the court session began and started presenting her arguments about why she deserved to share the company assets. But I didn't let her get too far. "A marriage cannot survive without trust," I said when I was called to respond. "Olivia broke that trust severely, and I cannot accept the deceit. She betrayed me, and she has no right to ask for anything from me." All eyes in the room turned to Olivia, who now had nothing left to argue. I had proven that I had prepared everything in advance, that every decision I made had a solid reason. She couldn't win this fight. After the court day, Olivia no longer had the strength to oppose me. Everything had ended. She had no right to claim any assets from the company, and furthermore, she would have to face returning the assets she had
unlawfully seized. When I left the courtroom, I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel happy about the victory. All I felt was emptiness. The love I once had for Olivia, all the happy memories we had shared, had now turned into an irreparable
pain. I returned to my office, where I could focus on the work projects that had been interrupted during this stressful period. In the days before, I had tried to avoid everything related to Olivia, but now I was finally able to face reality. I remained calm, but sometimes the moments of loneliness still came. I had no regrets about ending this marriage. What I regretted was what had happened during that time. The promises, the expectations, and the dreams of a beautiful future were now shattered. One afternoon, as I was working late, I received a call from Brian, Olivia's brother. He informed me that she was struggling in her life after everything that had happened. She was facing many challenges both at work and in her personal life.